These are four of the greatest gardens in Britain: Gravetye Manor, Ashwood, Great Dixter and Gresgarth Hall. Each has its own unique story to tell. It's like entering another world. Join me, Carol Klein, on a journey through the four seasons as I experience a year in their lives. I wish you could smell the perfume. Meet the people who look after them.
It's a bit like falling in love. You can't actually
Help it.
No.
Joyous, isn't it?
I think it's the best time of the year.
Unearth the secrets of how they evolve.
Chris has to be the bee.
Do you have to say bzzz while you're doing it? Reflect on their magnificent designs and celebrate the plants that make each so special. Carefully colour coordinated, these borders are at their absolute zenith. These are great British gardens. I can't wait. Can you? Nestled amidst the sheltered woodland and patchwork fields of the tranquil East Sussex countryside lies an important and beautiful country house garden. Gravetye Manor is a garden that revels in the beauty of nature and its spectacular surroundings. A wonderful place where plants thrive all year round because of its groundbreaking style of planting. I'm going to be lucky enough to get an exclusive behind-the-scenes peek at how this is achieved. And I'm starting the story of Gravetye during the burgeoning beauty of spring. At this time of year, dreamy drifts of crocus, snowdrops and daffodils spread like carpets throughout woodland dells and magical meadows. These wild-looking scenes are at the heart of what sets this garden apart. It was the vision of one of my heroes, a true horticultural revolutionary, William Robinson. He was an Irishman, a pioneering plantsman and prolific writer who changed the course of British gardening. Before him, country house gardens were constricted by Victorian formality, dominated by straight lines and bedding plants. William Robinson broke all the rules and set gardens free, and spring is the perfect time of year to appreciate his genius. If you've ever come across a scene like this, it's almost certainly been in a great big garden or a country house hotel, and you sort of take it for granted and think it's always been like that. But it was Robinson who actually brought this kind of idea into existence. Before him, you would never have seen it, except in the wild. Robinson skillfully orchestrated his planting to look as natural as possible. He believed gardening should celebrate nature rather than control it. So all the things he's planted here, you can actually see in the wild. This is our own little Lent lily, Narcissus pseudo-narcissus. But that looks huge in comparison to these dainty little things. This is Narcissus cyclaminius. The petals are reflex, they go right backwards, almost as though the flower had had a fright and it had gone, ooh, and pulled these petals back. It's such a glorious little thing. And growing beside it, look at this, what a cutie. This is Narcissus bulbocodium, otherwise known as the hoop petticoat daffodil. And if you look very closely, you can see exactly why. This is what he was all about, giving these plants the sort of place they really relish growing and letting them rip. Today, the bones of this glorious garden remain almost exactly as Robinson left them when he died in 1935. There are three main types of garden area represented here, each one brilliantly integrated with the others. There are carefully managed wild areas, including the front meadow above the lake, the orchard and the woodland gardens. Tucked away behind the house is a spectacular kitchen garden, a very significant feature at Gravetye. And thirdly, at the heart of the garden, close around the house, are the more formal areas of the little garden and Robinson's incredible flower garden. In the summer, this will be the star attraction. But for now, it's disrupted by important building work on the house, so the spring can only offer a tantalising taster of what it will be like in the days that are yet to come. Luckily, Gravetye has so much more to offer. William Robinson built what has to be the most impressive walled kitchen garden in Britain. In the late 1950s, his former home was turned into a hotel. Today, it has a Michelin-starred restaurant. The garden and the hotel have a mutual relationship. Each relies on the other. Within these magnificent curved walls, much of the kitchen's fresh produce is grown. It's all overseen by acclaimed head gardener Tom Coward and his faithful canine companion Vera. The spring is critical in preparing for the year ahead. I've never seen this kitchen garden at this time of year.
Looks like a big space, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And at this time of year, we think, how are we ever going to fill it all? But in a couple of months, we're fighting over every square foot.
Yeah.
Space is always the premium, isn't it, in every garden?
Beating each other off.
Yes.
Yeah. My strawberries, no, my raspberries. The walled garden epitomises an ethos William Robinson felt passionately about. That as well as being decorative, gardens should also be productive.
It's unique in its shape. It's oval. It's very clever how it works. It traps a little bit more heat, being an ellipse, and the cold air falls down the hill. We want to grow unique ingredients for Chef George for his menus.
What activities are you engrossed in now?
We're putting our potatoes out. Rhubarb is forcing quite nicely, and it's quite interesting. We're just about to force our sea kale, if you want to have a look at our sea kale.
I love that plant.
Yeah,
I really do.
Have you eaten it before?
Yes, I have.
Delicious. It's a good example of growing a crop that you can only get from the garden. It's really hard to buy.
So has it already started shooting?
We've got slight purple shoots just starting to show.
And it's just at that stage that you put this over the top?
Yes.
So what's the idea?
Well, the heat from the pot will make it grow quicker.
And if you keep the light out, it won't produce any chlorophyll, and it makes this quite sweet, nutty flavour. Because it's a maritime plant, we salt the soil, and that helps it grow, and it also helps kill off the weeds and the slugs.
So that's going to have a lid on
Yep.
as soon as you've finished, and you've just sort
Yeah,
of...
so we just mound round the end, make sure nothing can get underneath and no light can come in.
Just up this way.
I won't
See you
throw any
later,
stones.
Helen.
Bye. I can't wait to see what it'll be like when I come back in the summer, when this whole garden is going to be packed full of delicious bounty. I'm enjoying the magnificent springtime beauty of Gravetye Manor in Sussex. But in typical British style for this time of year, the weather's proving a little unpredictable. Yet even the rain can't diminish the looks of this stunning garden. Fortunately for me and head gardener Tom, its original owner William Robinson had the foresight to build these spectacular glass houses, which allows the gardening team to grow plants more suited to sunnier climes.
So this is our peach house, Carol.
Ooh, very beautiful. But this is the most beautiful thing in here.
I'm glad you like them.
Fantastic.
We planted them in
Structure.
2012, so they've done really well. They're one of the hardest crops to grow, and one of the problems is they flower so early and there's no insects about. So luckily, Chris is our resident peach expert, really. And Chris has to be the bee.
Do you have to say bzzz while you're doing
Only
it?
sometimes.
And what are you using?
So we're using rabbit tails on sticks. We use them because they're really soft and delicate, and they're really good at transferring the pollen.
Well, can I have a go at this, Chris?
Absolutely.
Would you mind? And then I'm making my own peaches, yeah?
Yeah.
And all you do is just touch these.
Yeah, just gently
try and
brush
pull
it.
some. Yeah, you have to be gentle, don't you? Because pollen's very fragile, isn't it? Look at the sunshine. Wonderful. You can almost hear them swelling, can't you? And then you move them on to...
Yeah, just
two more.
Yeah, work your way down the branches.
And how often do you do this?
Every day.
For
a couple of weeks, or whilst it's in full flower, really.
Thank you very much. Do you know what? I reckon you could use your own beard instead, couldn't you? If you lose your rabbit's tails.
Yeah.
It'll be a few months until we'll know if our work's paid off. I'm at the tail end of my spring visit to Gravetye. When I return, the garden will be bursting with colour and life. The sun is shining brightly and there's a warm stillness to the air. Summer has arrived at Gravetye Manor. The gardens have transformed from boggy and waterlogged to dry as a bone. A new beauty has been ushered in, and it's resplendent with vivid colour. Alongside classic perennials such as dahlias and gladioli is a fine example of everyone's favourite summer climber. Robinson was really mad keen about clematis. This particular one is Gravetye Beauty. It's got these lovely four-sepaled crimson flowers, but its beauty to me is this, these golden glistening seed heads. The garden is full of life and the bees are busy at work. When I was here in the spring, because of the building work, certain parts of the garden were out of bounds. But now it's finished, I can roam freely. At last, I'm able to rejoice in its creator William Robinson's masterpiece, the ornamental flower garden. It was well worth the wait. What a transformation since the spring. These natural-looking swathes of hardy perennials characterise the more naturalistic style of planting that Robinson ushered in more than 100 years ago. It's astonishing to think that this part of the garden is actually newly constructed. Just a few months ago, it was a building site. Tom has worked his magic, and it all looks so established.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
How you doing?
All the better for seeing you and seeing this.
What do you think?
Oh, it's splendid. I just can't believe how it's just so completely different. It's like another place.
Plants never cease to amaze me, really, what they can do, you know? So, yeah, we've been
With
busy,
a little
but...
help from a few gardeners.
Yeah. We really wanted to bring the garden right the way through up to the glass, because there's not many buildings where you sit like that with such a clear glass and have such a view of the garden.
But what about that great bank up there? That wasn't like that.
Yeah,
that was a
challenge. I think it was just about a week before we opened, we had time, we got new soil in and we had to rake it all out. And planted it up over the weekend. And
What, you did all that in a few days?
Well, yeah, it actually took months because we were growing the plants even before the work started, and that was where all the work came. So
you knew that the hole eventually would be filled in and you would be able to
It's
move
like
in.
cooking. If you've got good ingredients, then you can put it together quite quickly.
Yeah, come on, you're an artist, Tom. You really are. I mean, this is an artwork.
It's nice of you to say. I'm glad you like it.
It's beautiful. It really is. It's grand the way that they've integrated the new building and the new planting into the old garden. And this is the old garden. This is William Robinson's original flower garden. This has always been the garden's showpiece. But even though it appears more formal, it still reflects the daringly relaxed style he's known for. This is where he experimented. What he wanted to do was see what plants did. He wanted to give them the kind of place where they'd really thrive and really grow together. He championed combining different types of plants to provide a display of interesting flower and good structure right through to the first frosts. Robinson was a prolific author. Not only did he write lots of books, but he edited gardening magazines, which were very widely read. So it's true to say that he had a huge influence on the ideas of the time. His influence can still be seen in gardening today, especially at Gravetye, thanks to Tom and his team. Nowhere do you see anything that jars, and as you walk along the borders, different plants take your eye, and every single one of them looks happy and at ease. Robinson looked for plants whose natural habitat suggested they'd flourish in an English garden, no matter where they came from. We've got plants from all over the world. So just in this little space, we've got Spanish oats, this big Stipa gigantea. We've got cosmos from Mexico. We've got fennel from the Mediterranean and gladioli from South Africa. But they're all amalgamated in this way in which nothing looks unhappy next to its neighbour. They really do live together brilliantly well. A true international community. But now I can't wait to discover what delicious bounty Tom and his team are producing in the walled kitchen garden.
What do you think?
Oh, it's fabulous! It's wonderful.
It's quite a veggie patch, isn't it?
Oh, Tom. What a change from the spring, where there was once bare earth in this grand walled kitchen garden. There's now a scene of abundance. We're surrounded on all sides by waves of magnificent produce. It looks so splendid.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's got to be the best vegetable garden in the country, possibly the world. As well as a spectacular array of vegetables, there's a glorious, brightly coloured cutting garden. I love the way there are all these flowers everywhere, bringing in pollinators in.
Yeah, they're the beneficial insects and pollinators, and also we pick them to have them as flower displays in the manor.
And there's something else I'm particularly delighted to see. Is that the sea kale that we were putting forcing pots on?
Yeah, you helped us with the forcing pots, wasn't it? And it was a really good spring crop, actually.
Yeah.
You harvest it when it's white, and it's a lot sweeter then. I think George had it on with turbot and white asparagus and cockle sauce.
At Gravetye, the relationship between the hotel and garden, chef and gardener, is one of symbiosis.
This is our head chef, George.
Pleased to meet you.
George.
This is Carol.
What a wonderful garden to be
It's
able to...
absolutely incredible, you know, incredible place to come and visit.
So you work very closely together. Who decides what's going to be grown?
We try and get George to lead it as much as possible.
I mean,
but
I do lead it, but what's growing in the garden dictates actually what is exactly on the menu.
So what are you going to grab today?
We're going to try out the sweet corn. We've got 2 different varieties, and I think we're going to put that on with a lobster dish. Things like sweet corn and the asparagus, they are so much more delicious when they're fresh.
and these are the first ones. It's just coming into season. So
Whoa.
is it with lobster? Is it?
Yeah, we're doing it with lobster and
Nice.
with quail.
So they've ripened just about perfectly, and you can always see when the tassels start to go brown.
Yeah.
You know they're beginning to get ready. This is a white variety.
Can I?
Yeah, have a bite, have a bite, have a bite. It's sublime.
It's incredible that most vegetables you can eat from raw straight away when they're fresh.
Yeah.
Whereas anything you buy from a supermarket, you can't. It's just a completely different product.
I know I shouldn't talk with my mouth full, but it's so delicious. Well, I suppose we better not completely strip it or you'll have nothing for the restaurant.
No, it's quite easy to do that.
Lovely to meet you.
You too.
It really is.
You're welcome.
See you soon, George.
Gravetye's proving to be a very tasty garden indeed. And I'm told there are still plenty more goodies yet to come. Here at Gravetye Manor in East Sussex, wild meadow areas were central to the original plan for the garden, made by its famous founder William Robinson. Back in March, they were awash with gorgeous spring flowers, but they've since been replaced with a different kind of beauty. The meadows might look natural, but to get them to flourish actually requires skilled intervention. Right now, you're doing things to the meadow.
Yeah, so we've just started to cut the hay. We leave it very late so that all of the wildflowers have set seed, and it's a lovely time of year where we can just start mowing the hay.
Cutting the hay helps maintain the mix of flowers and grasses in these hugely important areas of biodiversity.
This is the yellow rattle, and it's one of the most important plants in the meadow because it's a parasite on the grass, and it actually reduces the vigour of the grass as it feeds off of it, and in doing that it opens up space for other wildflowers to move into the meadow. One of the most exciting is the wild orchids, and we've got one here. This is the common spotted orchid. We've been working really hard on spreading the orchids all over the estate over the last few years. These meadows are actually quite rare now. 98% have been lost over the last 50 years.
Very, very important, as well as being exciting. I can see it. I can see all the seed just
Beautiful.
spreading out. Look at that. There's clouds of it. Normally, the cut hay is taken away for compost. But this year, Tom plans to use it to help establish a new meadow closer to the house.
So what we want to do is to cut the hay from this species-rich area and move the wildflower seed with the hay across to the new meadow, which used to be a mowed lawn.
But it's quite poor.
Yeah, poor in
terms of
species.
wildflowers.
Yeah.
So all the seeds from this are just going to fall onto the grass there, and
We hope so.
that's a brilliant idea. So can we give a hand up here?
I'm sure they'd love that.
Always wanted to use a pitchfork.
It's a bit like bundling up spaghetti on a fork in a way.
Yeah,
That's it. And then spike it.
and then spike it, and then twirl it. And then lift it. Ooh,
I think you're a natural.
I wish. I'm having fun, though. Oh, no.
Make hay when the sun shines.
Ready, steady. Once the hay, packed full of wildflower seeds, reaches its new home, the whole process is reversed. And will you just leave it?
We'll leave it there for a week, and we'll turn it and flick it around.
Yeah.
And then after a week or so, then we'll gather it up, and all of the wildflower seeds should be nicely established on the meadow. And hopefully, by the spring, those wildflower seeds should germinate.
The results of this work won't be visible until next spring. But that's a great thing about a garden like Gravetye. There's always something to look forward to in the future. When I was here in spring, I played a small part in pollinating some peach trees. And I can't complete my summer visit without seeing the fruits of my labour. Oh, just look at that. There are perfectly plump peaches everywhere.
So they started cropping in June. Do you want to try one?
Yes, please. Oh, it's warm and it's soft and fuzzy. Can I? Oh, it's delicious. And it's utterly lovely.
They're lovely, aren't they?
How do you resist? I've been here breakfast, lunch and dinner.
I think they're quite important to chef at the moment. You know, it's special to have peaches that you've ripened on the tree, and you can't... That's a real unique flavour.
I mean, I'm not offering it to you. That's something that you just can't replicate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nowhere could you go into a shop and buy something like this.
There's a lot of work growing them like this as well, but then it's when you get that at the end.
It's truly worth it. So all that tickling with a rabbit's tail all worked out?
Yeah.
So far, I've admired the promise of early spring and the heady heights of summer. So returning to admire the garden during the remaining 2 seasons is a tantalising prospect. Autumn has well and truly arrived at Gravetye. You can see it, you can smell it, you can sense it. It permeates every inch of the place. And the plants that trumpet the arrival of the season are these magnificent trees. Some of them have been here for hundreds of years, and they form a backdrop for everything that's happening in the garden below. There are so many beauties here, from radiant acers to this wonderful euonymus, commonly known as the winged spindle, with its crimson leaves and delicate fruit. You can really appreciate William Robinson's skilled understanding of plants. The closer you get to this magnificent tree, the more you realise what a colossus it is. It's huge. And up on this bank too, it really sets the scene. This is Nyssa sylvatica. It's from the eastern seaboard of the United States. Its common name is tupelo. Robinson brought together all sorts of wonderful trees here, and many of them are famed for this season, for this beautiful, beautiful colour. It's magnificent. Not to be outshone by the trees, the flower garden is putting on its own spectacular autumn show. As soon as I walked in this morning, I mean, the first thing that struck me was the atmosphere here, just how beautiful and soft and mellow everything is. When I was here in the summer, the flower garden was at its zenith. But thanks to Tom's skillful pre-planning, it's still just as beautiful. I love the way you've repeated these blobs of colour right the way down. And that dahlia is just...
It's cracker, isn't it? Magenta Star, that one. Yeah, it's really good. One of my favourite dahlias of all time, actually. I kind of enjoy it with the orange. They're quite strong colours, but this time of year they're softened by the light. In midsummer, when the light's stronger, those colours can be a bit washed out. But at this time of year, I really like it.
Is that David Howard?
That's David Howard, yeah.
I love this salvia.
Yeah, I love salvias.
Yeah.
They give such a long season, and I think blue spikes at this time of year are really quite unusual.
Really good choice of plants. It works perfectly, Tom. I mean, it was so ebullient in the summer, wasn't it? And now everything just feels, you know, it just feels so right and so soft, so mellow.
Yeah.
Autumn at Gravetye means so many things. Glorious flower borders, magnificent trees with fabulous autumn colour. But here in the walled garden, it's all about bounty, plenty, fecundity and harvest. Whenever I visit, there's something different to see, with wonderful new crops coming into season. It's a busy time for Helena, who's the gardener charged with looking after the walled garden. All her hard work earlier in the year is now paying off. Something incredibly satisfying about harvesting these.
Yeah, they're marvellous.
Which variety is it?
It's called Autumn Crown.
Yeah.
And it's a hybrid between Crown Prince, which is the blue pumpkin with the dense flesh, and a butternut squash.
It's the most beautiful colour.
It's autumn, isn't it?
So what's going to happen to those? Will they be used straight away?
No, we'll be storing these.
Yeah.
So we're harvesting them now, and we put them in the peach house. So it's nice and warm and dry in there, and that cures the skin, so it hardens the skin.
Right.
Just to give them some extra protection against rotting.
I love the colour of them. It's wonderful that the glass house, where we picked plump summer peaches, now contains a magnificent autumn harvest. This time of year at Gravetye isn't only about reaping the rich rewards of hard work earlier in the year. It's also about planning and prepping for the next. One of Robinson's major ideas was that the garden should merge harmoniously into the surrounding landscape. And to that effect, he planted thousands and thousands of bulbs, naturalised in the meadows that surround the lake. Now it's autumn, and it's the time to carry on that tradition and start planting more bulbs. So, in a completely different season in midsummer, we were here, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Spreading all that hay. And...
Yeah, it's been quite an exciting project, really. It was great to put all that wildflower seed down, and that's settled. Now the next phase is to try and get some bulbs in.
So is it quite straightforward, Tom?
Yeah, it is. But there's a bit of an irony in this to make it work really hard to make it look like you haven't done it.
Yeah.
You want to look like the plants have naturalised here on their own. We use this tool, a bulb planting tool, and we just punch out cores like this.
So can I have a go too?
Yeah.
So what do you do, Tom?
Well, you just
Lots of
punch it in
energy.
the ground and twist it a bit, and then the core pops out.
Woo!
There you go. But as you do it, you've always got to bear in mind how the bulb will naturalise and grow naturally, and getting the density and the colonies.
So even with all that energy, woo, that you're employing there, you're still thinking about what it's going to look like.
Well, yeah. You've got to keep the mind alive, because we've got about 10,000 of these to go across the estate, so going to be fairly fit by the end of bulb planting season.
I don't think I'm very good at this, Tom.
Oh, you'd be right. A couple more thousand to get the practice in.
So what are these then, Tom?
These are a daffodil called Narcissus thalia, which they're a really nice white one. A little bit later in the season, and so we've got the orchard behind us, and hopefully they'll link up with the apple blossom.
Yeah, they'll coincide.
Yeah.
You push it in right to the bottom of the hole and then find the plug.
And you do that thousands of times again and again and again, so it's like not too exciting. In fact, it's really quite dull. But in the long run, how exciting is that? Because the next year you see them all flower, and all of these bulbs should naturalise and spread. So it's legacy. We're leaving this here, and hopefully in 100 years there's still really good populations of bulbs growing here that we've established.
I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least my grandchildren's grandchildren. Yeah. I've been lucky enough to visit Gravetye several times in the past, but that's always been in the summer. So it's been an absolute treat to see it in spring and autumn. And so now, I can't wait to see what the colder months hold in store for this inspiring garden. Everything begins to die away. Here at Gravetye, there are signs of new life, new shoots springing up everywhere. Just across the path from this huge long border is this extensive meadow. It's a wildflower meadow. And it's glorious. It's full of all manner of plants. And of course, the first things to spring up are the bulbs. There are crocus, there are snowdrops, and of course, the lovely little wild daffodil, Narcissus, pseudo-narcissus. The garden is almost back to where it was when I began my visits here in the spring. The hotel guests and the restaurant visitors expect the garden to look pucker whatever time of year they visit. This is a garden that can't rest on its laurels. It has to earn its keep all the year round. The garden's creator, William Robinson, wanted the garden to reflect nature closely. So head gardener Tom is always looking for new opportunities to replicate what goes on in the wild throughout the garden. What a lovely lot of snowdrops.
Aren't they incredible?
So where did they come from, Tom?
Yeah, well, we had a whole carpet of these wonderful snowdrops come up down near the lake.
Yeah.
No one can really appreciate them down there, and a really good way to propagate and divide them is to lift them now whilst they're in growth.
And where are they going to go?
Yeah, we want to plant them all along this sunken path on both sides so that it becomes a real carpet of white. And I think it's really important to have winter interest in places that you have to walk.
So we're just going to separate them up. It's lovely how they sort of bulk up spontaneously, don't they?
Don't they?
And you have one little handful and it turns into a dozen bulbs.
And such a delicate little thing. It's actually so vigorous.
Here we go. And I suppose you want to make them quite random, don't you?
Yeah. Hoping they'll thrive here. And we planted a handful last year as an experiment, just to check that we're not wasting our time.
What a good idea.
Yeah, if you spend days doing this and the plants die, it's terrible. So it's always good to spend half an hour with a handful of plants as an experiment first, I think.
And just look at that. You can see here's a new little bulb already starting to form on there. Yeah. It's lovely, isn't it? And forever and ever, these will be flowering.
I hope so. These are probably only going to be at their very best long after we're gone. But
Yeah.
It's quite a nice feeling.
Yeah, it is. I can't leave Gravetye Manor without a final visit to the flower garden, so I can see it in its winter guise. So these borders are completely different, aren't they? They were full of vibrant colour and as tall as can be.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it changes. It's really the time to see the bones of the garden, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
and the architecture and the plan that Robinson put in. And also I love the naked silhouettes of the shrubs at this time of year. I think it really shows their character so much. We try and leave as much structure as we can in here and winter interest.
So this bit's worked out brilliantly well too.
It's been really interesting. Of course, one of the anxieties about building glass building like this is what's it going to be like in the winter?
So if I'm a guest, I'm looking out at all this.
Yeah. It's nice to see from the restaurant. They call it the borrowed landscape, or the countryside beyond becomes so much more prevalent. It's much more of a landscape rural experience than an intimate garden, flower garden experience that you get in the summer, I think.
Exactly, because you're not distracted by all that colour and beauty in the foreground.
Yeah.
Look at that view. Isn't that wonderful? What does it really mean to you?
Yeah, it's just the most wonderful, rewarding place to garden. Not only are you working with history, but you're moving forwards and having quite a dynamic, changing garden.
You're becoming part of it. You're becoming part of that
I think it's
history.
become part of me. But
But the love shows through everywhere.
oh, that's nice to say, thank you.
My year at Gravetye is coming to an end. What a pleasure it's been. I've seen it transform from the unleashed natural beauty of springtime flowers in the wild meadow to the abundance of summer when the magnificent kitchen garden was rich with produce. And from the glorious display of colour in autumn to the stately skeletal remains of winter amidst the promise of new life. This garden really is a delight all year round. Inside the beautifully designed framework of this place, there exists masses of creativity, imagination, new ideas, and wonderful husbandry. And it's all this that makes Gravetye Manor a great British garden.